Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome to this week's episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matt Peverill, joined by my co-host as always, Marky Davison. Mate, how you doing? And don't tell me about the rainy, dreary weather. I want to hear some positivity.
I'm not too bad. You know, Lamar Jackson just ran off 100 yards on us. He's thrown for three TDs, you know, the last game versus Steelers. Hollywood Brown went 150 yards receiving. You know, Patrick Queen got 2 sacks in an interception against the Steelers.
Is that the last game they played? Is that the game that they just played?
It feels like it's this game. Are you joking? Oh, my. It's not over yet, people.
Mate, we're live from the future, but we're not that far in the future.
It feels like this week, everyone thinks we're going to lose and the season's over, and I had to address that because it's crazy and I can't stand it. Hello, my name's Mark Davis, and welcome to Behind the Steel Curtain.
Oh, what a classic. And we've got Irvin in the live chat as well, first one in, so congrats, Irvin, there. Yeah, and I think, you know what else is a travesty? I couldn't find a Steelers Christmas song. I thought someone would have written a Steelers Here We Go right by now.
Yeah, well, you know, Christmas is still a few days away, mate. Same as the Ravens game. And we don't know. Maybe in that time, maybe a Christmas song might come out, but we don't know the result yet. So just calm down, mate. Calm down.
So, Mark, it sounds like you're pretty frustrated. It sounds like you're pretty frustrated with some of the fan base out there. But before we get into that, some news. Steelers have activated Carlos Davis, Chaz Green as well. Good to see Carlos Davis back out of that reserve injured list. And then also TJ Watt, I believe, is now in the game. So that is going to be very, very helpful for us. But I'm interested to see, like, you know, I think Heyward was still potentially out with an illness that wasn't COVID. So I don't know whether, I think he's got one more day to prove himself, but not sure what's happening there as well. And I think we're still looking like Hayden's going to be out as well. I haven't seen the latest update on that one. Not sure if you know, Mark, about Hayden.
I believe Hayden is out. I checked the injury report today or this morning, and even it says now, it says game status out. So I have to go with what the Steelers say from their actual website. Joe Hayden seems to be out. He's another key piece for this defense that will be missed. And we can't play like we did, you know, versus the Bengals. I know that was a horrible game and we let up so many yards. So, yeah, for this Ravens game, it's not good for us. I see what everyone sees. Okay, I see that we are playing bad. It's not good.
It's very Christmas. Do you see what I see?
But there's still hope. And yeah, Hayden being out now, Watt coming back. You know, that's good. But how does the COVID-19 affect him? Does he play okay? I don't know. We don't know. We won't know until they go onto the field. But having Watt back at least will pressure Lamar more than some the other guys we have on the linebacker side.
Yeah, that's it. And I want to bring up Evan Giles because I've just pulled that up while you were talking there, Mark, as well. And it looks like Adam Schefter's reporting that Big Ben's told people that, particularly the teammates privately, that it's his final season. The tweet that I was just pulling up there, because it's just broken in the last 10 to 20 minutes. Apparently, it's about not wanting to, assuming this is correct, assuming his sources are correct, this is all about not wanting to disrupt the Steelers' playoff push. I mean, look, I think that as soon as that comes into play, it's already going to be disruptive to that, or it's going to be something that's noteworthy. So, Mark, I mean, look, I'm going to let you go full steam into it and ask you a few questions because I know that you're pretty keen as we sort of kicked off this show around talking that some of the fan base are just giving up. Well, let's start with the Big Ben stuff. If this is Big Ben's last season, why should the Steelers tune into the Ravens tomorrow? Is that another reason? You know, why should the Steelers really be giving up on this team?
It's really, if this is his last season, you know, you don't know what you have until it's gone, kind of mentality. Like if this is Big Ben's last season, he's played 18 seasons, he's done so many things for us. As a fan base, to get behind our team, he's a 2-time Super Bowl winner. He's been to 3, countless division games. He's done everything. He's got, you know, most yards, he's the leader of this team, or you know, stat wise. So, and a lot of people are saying, you know, bench Big Ben, but in reality of all things, there's 6 games to go. What's the point in benching him now?
Yeah.
There's no point in what I see. There's no point to bench Big Ben right now. You know, you're better off.
And
just waiting.
they're not going to bench Big Ben in his final season. Like, he's going to have 2 games of 5 interceptions. They're not benching Big Ben in his final season, assuming that is
the biggest thing I see is okay. Yes, a lot of fans get around and they say he didn't have an interception for 5 games and that was so great, and we were on the Big Ben train. And now it's like we had a really bad game where he threw 2 interceptions and we got beat down 41-10 by a good, angry, young Bengals side. And it feels like the world has been turned upside down, which I don't really agree with. You guys can call me crazy, and I'm more of a passionate fan than I am factual or a realist of like this team, because I'll cheer anyone. If you suited up behind quarterback, I'd cheer you on to play. I really would. I'd say, give Matty the number 10 jersey and let's go. And then finally Matty's got his name on. He's got a jersey. But I'm just saying.
I'd be number 9, mate. Boz would have to change his number. I'm not going to fight to it for his number.
Well, I don't know. You could. I'm just saying, look, as the way that I've grown up and watched this game and been behind this game, and I'm a big fan, and people, you know what, call me out if you want to, because I really don't care. I'm speaking to the real diehard fans who want to get on my train and really rally behind. We're 5-5-1. The Steelers are versing the Ravens. We beat the Ravens last year, 2 in a row. Lamar Jackson has thrown 4 interceptions last game. He's not the best quarterback. You watch him throw his passes on the outs. It goes over people's hands all the time. I don't think there is reason to give up at all. There is no reason. Now, if I'm wrong and we lose, well, we'll come back next week and we'll talk about something else. Do you see where I'm coming from?
But we come back next week and we give it another crack, right? Like, the Steelers can come back next week. They can give it another crack, right? So, that's going to be the...
All right, as Matty does a bit of a rain check here, I think his devices are not connected, so his Wi-Fi is just gone. But yeah, I'll continue my rant if I can. So, listening, guys, this is a small little break. My name's Mike from Behind the Steel Curtain, where people come into the live chat. I don't mean to get on a big, massive rant. It's just the way that I watch this game. Being a Steeler fan and having the opportunity with Behind the Steel Curtain, I just wish them full success every single game. It doesn't matter if they lose 5 in a row, 6 in a row, and we have a chance. I, from one, being from my side, being a fan or being on this podcast, I never want to wish a tanking season. I never want to wish us to get go really bad and get the first draft pick, because the number one thing is I wait, and a lot of fans too. We wait all year. We wait 9 months, or me and Matty, as Matty comes back. We wait 9 to 10 months to come back and cheer our team on. I'm not going to give away the next 6 games to wait until April. This is really all I have. This is, like, to be very honest, is one of the best things in life that I have that I can cheer and support and get around. I'm not going to wait until April or next September to get that number 1 pick. And if we hope to get a new quarterback, there are new quarterbacks out there like the Jags guys, Zach Wilson, that aren't doing anything for their team, and these franchises are struggling. I just think it's a culture problem. Matty, where'd you go?
I said my media hub is playing a bit like Devin Bush. It's going missing at the wrong points in time. So not good there. Not good there. But anyway, hopefully it can stay on for the rest of the show there. So that's what happens when you tinker with the settings too much. Dog barking, it's all going nuts over here, just like the 41-10 loss last week. But speaking of the 41-10 loss last week, I'm sort of interested to know, how are you feeling after that game? Because obviously you said you're back in the team no matter what. You said you're pumped, not give up on the team. But how were you feeling 2 minutes after that game ended last week?
2 minutes? I'll be very honest. It was a bad game. It was a really, really bad game. We didn't run the ball at all, really. We didn't even try. Big Ben is having miscommunication problems with Claypool, and I would say, no one's really taking ownership on that route. He threw that interception, and it was like, maybe it was more Big Ben being scared in that circumstance when he could have went to Claypool, down the sideline. The defense is just not there. They're not playing with any heart. There's no one really playing in the middle. Outside linebackers aren't doing anything. Yes, we got a few sacks, but overall, 41-10, it's a bad loss. It really is a terrible, terrible loss. And I see that. I see how we have no players, the skill might be lacking, or we have like depth guys filling in, getting burnt everywhere. Pierre got carved up on the outside. He got carved up too many times.
Mate, I'm done with. I had to interject there, man. I'm done with Pierre. The guy's a depth piece, if that, in the NFL. Done.
Well, he got carved up about 3 or 4 or 5 times. I would say that in every single route, and it felt like the same route. He played off coverage. He never got in the man's face, and then they completed the ball, and it was like 3rd and 13, and we got the first down. It just kept happening over and over. We were never really in that game to begin with, and yes, that is a lot of critique from some fans who say we don't get ready for these games, and I do see that. I do see how there is no heart and passion. I just think that they can change it around. And look, I can be completely wrong, but the Ravens can go out there and stump us. But in this particular game, they're not the best side either.
So I'll ask you a question, Mark, that's sitting here for me. And I think there'd be some people that would probably be thinking about it as well. The last couple of years when the Steelers haven't done as well, kind of 2019 onwards, people have sat there and said we wasted, and I know the Scobros talked about the other week, but we wasted talent. Like, we never won a Super Bowl when we had AB and Lav Bell and, and some of those sorts of guys and that great O-line and all the rest of it. But do you think, because in some ways I sit there, I'm like, well, if they didn't win it, how can we expect this team to do that? Like, there's just been such a loss of talent, and like that defense is missing so many good players, and there's such turnover. And this is the thing that I'm, you said to me before we went on air, and it was a really good point. This team aren't the Lions. They're not like 0-9-1 or 0-8-1 or whatever the Lions are now, right? And so I sort of sit there and I think, well, would the fan base be happier if the Steelers were that way? And we had the first round pick we had the first pick in the draft, or the second pick, or the third pick, a top 5 pick. Is that what we prefer? And I'm beginning to wonder, and I understand the business sense in it. Like, I'm going to sit here straight. I don't believe in tanking, but quite frankly, from a business perspective, and this isn't high school or junior school sport or whatever it is, where participation and learning the spirit of the game and sportsmanship are the key. It's a business, right? And you have a top pick, and it puts you in a really good spot as a franchise if you get it right. So I understand the philosophy of tanking. Like, I do get it. But what I can't understand is that, and I'm not saying that we should change our expectations or our standards. And I said it in War Room this week as well. Like, the standard is the standard. I'm sick of hearing that, because they're not playing to the standard, right? The standard for this team is below the standard. That's what it is. But what I'm trying to say here is that should we really be do we want them to do worse, or should we stick with it and see if they can scrape in with a team that we know has limitations? And I think about Super Bowls that the Steelers have won in the course of their history, where they've gone into the playoffs, not as world beaters, not as the team that's going to win the Super Bowl, and that's had limitations, and they've come together and found a way to get it done. And I think that's what the fan base needs to decide, both individually and collectively. Like, which way are we going to look at it?
Man, I'm riding. I'll give you this analogy, okay? And this might only appeal to the one Australian fan that's listening, but I'll give this analogy. I'm riding the train, whatever direction it goes in. For me, I'm on the Central Coast. I can either go to Newcastle, which is north, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, north. Or I can go to Sydney, which is south. Now, either way you go to one of those cities, some would have different expectations and ideas to say which city is best, okay? So I'm riding it every single game to say the Steelers are going to win this game, and hopefully we have a good playoff push like we did in 2016. We were 6-5 in 2016, and we went on to win, I think, the last 6 to go 11-5. Or the last 5 to go 11-5, right? And that was when I was in Canada, and I watched that game, that 2016 team. Yes, they were a better team for sure, right? But they went on to the playoffs. They won the division. They ended up getting 2 wins, and then they lost to the Patriots. And then that's the point we get to when we lose to the Patriots. Then the other side of the coin, it flips, and someone catches and go, "Oh, we lost to the Patriots. We suck. We're terrible. Mike Tomlin sucks. Big Ben's too old." So I'm just getting to the point of, like, can you win it both ways? If you're following this team, I follow just to see what happens, and I ride the emotions. But if you're jumping on, like, this team is terrible and you're going to check out, see you in April. I'll talk to you in April. But if you're going to keep on the train, it's on the same train with me, why do you keep pestering me? I need to, follow the team, and I want to have fun with this team, and I hope that they can win every single game.
Now, money where your mouth is was something that was a phrase we used a lot in our debut season last year. Bringing it back for this one, money where your mouth is, do the Steelers make the playoffs?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Because I would say if you can beat these divisional opponents and then go to divisional opponents at least, and then maybe 1 or 2 games, give them a chance for the 7th seed. We're only 2 games back out of the 7th seed. Okay. Now that was a hard question to ask, and that was a great question to ask. Puts my passion on the pedestal and says, okay, what's really going to happen, Mark? I get that, but I still believe they can if things get around because they have Big Ben, and if this is his last ride for sure, don't count him out.
And okay, if they miss the playoffs, do you think he comes back for another season? Do you think he's truly?
I honestly, you and I have talked about the Big Ben saga coming back and forth every single time. I don't know that. I can't answer. I really don't know if he's got.
What's your gut feel? What's your gut feel? Or even not. What's your heart feel? What do you want in an ideal world?
I'll say this. I really can't answer it because I've answered that question I think 3 times and I've been wrong every single time. I thought he was done after the injury. I thought he was going to give it up after the injury. I thought that was it. I thought he was going. I thought, thanks, Ben. Thanks, mate, for your time. He comes back. And there was, even I think maybe before that, I thought he was going to play for 4 more years. He could honestly, he could play next year with a better team around him, build the O-line better, like you've talked about. Get some more another receiver, get Juju back, get our defense back, get the heart and team back. And the only thing I would say that I find that why he would walk away would be the disconnect from the young players, if that makes any sense. He's 39 years old. The younger players are 22, 23. It's not like, if we can go to the bars or whatever, like they're going out and having fun and doing their, young people stuff where Big Ben's going home.
Well, you saw it this week with Big Ben talking about, Dan Rooney, and versus Art Rooney and, what it was like in music in the locker room and, all the rest of it. And Dave brought it up and I was listening to that sort of, 20 minutes or so of that show having lunch. And he said exactly what I wanted someone to say. Big Ben came onto this team before we had Twitter, before we had smartphones. It's a completely different world.
Mm-hmm.
Like you think about the world that's changed in the last 16 to 7 years before the GFC, it's just a million different things that we're talking about here, that are incredible to see that difference. And it's like you say, Mark, but going back to the Steelers and their passion. And before I do that, I want to bring up Matt Quinn's comment in the live chat, because I understand his sentiment. I feel quite similar that, the season's not over if they lose this week mathematically, but it's going to be really hard to overcome that loss, particularly it's a divisional opponent.
I agree with that.
But going back to what we were saying before about the Steelers and the heart of the team and the passion and the standard is the standard and all those sorts of things, and have they wasted talent and all the rest of it? How much of an impact do you think it's going to be let's take it as, assuming what Adam Schefter's tweeted out is correct. I'm not taking what Alex Kozora says. I'm taking what Adam Schefter says on Twitter, and he doesn't get it right all the time either. Most of the time he does. But if this is Big Ben's final season, how much of an impact do you think that's going to be next year on the standard is the standard and leading that locker room? And who needs to step up? And we can't just say your TJ Watts and your Cameron Heywards, but who on this offense is going to step up? Because that's a very different offense.
You'll need you'll need to play physical football, a bit like they need to play physical football now. You'll need the big fellas up front. You'll need the Dotson. You'll need the Kendrick Green, the center, Trey Turner. You'll need those fellas to have the identity of playing steel curtain football on the offensive side. They're not pushing anyone. They're not making anyone fear. It's a good question. I don't know. That's the unknown of who would fill in for Big Ben, and that's going to be, probably 75% of our shows next year for everyone. Who's going to fill in for Big Ben? We don't know. Who do you think would fill in for Big Ben?
Yeah. So this is the thing. I think honestly, I think there's two guys that embody, and I know this seems very early to say it, but I think there's two guys that embody that hardworking Steelers culture, that grind at all costs, that just step up when it needs to be. And that's Najee and Freiermuth. I think those two guys that we've got, and I honestly, and I've said it, when I do the rookie, focus on the rookies each week in War Room, talked about it a lot. But those two pieces, no matter what quarterback, we're probably going to go out and get a veteran in the offseason. Like, they're probably not going to rely on drafting a quarterback in this next draft. I hate to break it to everyone, but that's just the case. Like, Matt Corral at the moment is probably going to go number one. I know people are talking about Kenny Pickett and all the rest of it. Matt Corral is probably going to be the first quarterback taken off the board, and it's going to come, around pick 8 or even afterwards, right? So that quarterback's not sitting there. In fact, there's a guy that I've seen out of Boston College who's had a few injuries, Phil Jurkovec, who's could return back into college next year, might be available in the following year. I like what he can do I think he's not supported by the right guys around him, for all those out there that like drafting college football. But you look at the pieces that Najee and Freiermuth are, they are going to make it easy for whatever quarterback comes in there, provided there's a good O-line. We just have to caveat, number one, the O-line's, crap. You can't do anything. But to have Najee there, a hard worker, a grinder, someone who's experienced, someone that's got the right mental temperament, amazing talent, and the same as Freiermuth, they are massive linchpins, and they're going to have to lead. They are going to have to lead this team, and it is going to come down to guys like Dotson and what have you. But I think you've got Freiermuth who's going to lead in his play, and I think Najee, just the way he talks already, you see him in those interviews, he commands the respect. But actually, it also makes me, and it leads me into the next question that I wanted to ask you. Mike Tomlin's copped a lot of criticism. And for everyone listening as well on the audio and live right now, we will get into previewing the Ravens game specifically, and particularly in part 2. But there's a lot of different storylines going on at the moment. So we wanted to grapple with those before we look, focus in on the micro trends, the micro focus of the Ravens game in the next sort of 36 hours. But the question I want to ask you was, you talked about the culture there, and we talked about the changing players. I don't think Mike Tomlin should go. I hate that fire Tomlin crowd. I've given the Arsenal analogy all the time. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google Arsenal's last, major winning manager, Arsene Wenger, and you'll figure out what the analogy pretty quickly. But I do think there's going to have to be, and I'm not saying they change the coordinator, but they're going to have to make some changes on offense and defense from the coordinator perspective, or like some of the other coaches. Now, there's guys like Adrian Clem, who I think has actually done a good job, but I think Terrell Austin's particularly good on the defensive side. Now, people might call me foolish for criticizing Keith Butler, and I know he's an incredible linebacker coach, but something's going to have to change in this locker room other than just Big Ben's going. Something's going to have to change. And there's got to be something fresh, because I don't think Tomlin's message is lost on the locker room. But Tomlin can't. There's a reason why you have coordinators and a number of coaches in professional sport, and Tomlin can't, be responsible for making sure every player gets up each week, or all 70 plus people if you include the practice squad. It can't all be on Tomlin.
I kind of get this sense too with like players like TJ Watt, Cam, and maybe some of those leaders on the veteran side and the defense. Maybe they feel like they're limited with this playbook as well, with the defense and the players. They do seem a little bit frustrated on what kind of schemes and things they're doing on the defense. They let up Joe Mixon have 170 yards on the ground. You can't be doing that. The Steelers defense right now has not bought into who they are, that steel mentality, run down like Vince Williams on the quarterback, on stuffing the run and doing those things like Lawrence Timmon, did, or playing like fantastic role how William Gay used to play with us. There are certain things in the Steelers defense that they're missing. A lot of things that Ryan Clark called him out big time, but look out for Ryan Clark, because he's so wishy-washy. They'll go out and score 40 points this week and he'll be back on the bandwagon. I don't overly trust what Ryan Clark would say. Yes, he was a good player for us, but he called him out and said they're playing soft, they're playing bad defense. Yes, they are. But that's his take, right? But I think with this Steelers defense, or mentality around the coordinators, something does need to change, because on both sides of the football, it does feel like they do seem very limited. Like with Big Ben checking down to Najee, like, you know, 2nd and 10, and then they're not throwing the football past the sticks. They're doing the similar plays, and yes, they're working. But the record does say we're 5-5-1, so it's working 50% of the time, and it's not working the other time. They do need a spark. I don't think getting rid of Tomlin is the answer. If you get rid of Tomlin, we are like the Lions. We have someone coming in. Is it Dan Campbell? Is he the Lions guy? Is trying to fire him up. They're a bad franchise. You have Jags. They're a bad franchise. I think Tomlin is everything's. It gives us a chance to win at the end of the day, being 500, right? So, and yes, some people don't like that, and we should win Super Bowls every single year. But the reality is, you can't win a Super Bowl every single year. It's not going to happen. Yes, we are due for one. We need one. But we need these players to step up and play that football. And, you know, as a side note too, we're in a different world. You look at it now. Zach Banner's going on the Arthur Moat show. Chris Wormley's going on making his own show and doing little side projects. For you and I would say, why aren't they studying football? But it's a whole different world right now in what we live in with the Steelers. And, you know, you and I are two Australians talking football behind this steel curtain. So, you know what I'm saying? It's a very different world with this team. The young blokes, they're so young now, they're 22. I'm almost 32 coming up in a month. It's different. It's so different. But what I do miss as a Steeler fan, and I don't know what you think, I just miss just be competitive. And they're not being competitive.
That's it. I think you've hit the nail on the head here. I don't think it's about this team giving up on this team. It's the competitiveness that, you know, even in the wins we've had, it's the competitiveness. You know, I talk about all the time. When was the last time we saw the Steelers rack up a massive score, right? It's the competitiveness of like putting someone to the sword. Yeah, exactly. I couldn't tell you. You know, I know a lot of stats. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But the thing that I always find funny as well, particularly in the last week, is you've seen these massive contracts in college football. Like you've seen all the changes with, you know, Brian Kelly going to LSU, leaving Notre Dame, and you've seen Lincoln Riley leave Oklahoma, you know, and go to Oklahoma State and go to you know, USC, which I think makes sense for him. And, you know, Matt Campbell got a massive contract in the offseason as well for Iowa. Mike Tomlin is making less money than those guys. So if people want to fire Tomlin, like at some point, Tomlin, I don't think he will. I think he wants to coach the NFL, and that's it, and that's the pinnacle. But like if I'm Mike Tomlin, if I'm going to cop this for a couple more years, like why wouldn't he go to college? Like 10 years, 160 mil, that's double what he's making. Like people don't know what you've got until it's gone. And if people are cotton on with that with Ben, like it's the same thing now. I just think it's a very interesting headspace that we're in right now. But I think what the other thing that you've hit on the head, Mark, as well, is it's this instant gratification part. And that's a difference in culture and in society now. People don't work to get things and to wait for things. Everyone's, how many likes have I got on Instagram, or why can't I have this now? And, you know, I'm going to go into, and even look at like, you know, and everyone in this, most people in this world have some sort of debt and what have you. But even like the idea of a credit card, 30 years ago, credit cards, you know, 40 years ago, credit cards didn't exist. If you couldn't afford it, you didn't have it. And I think the way society's changed with instant gratification, it's not something, I mean, you think back when the Steelers, before they won all those Super Bowls, before Chuck Noll came on board, right? Like people were still rocking up in the Pittsburgh cold in the 60s to watch them play. I mean, I'm sure that, you know, it wasn't, you know, full to the brim every week. And I know it wasn't, but this is the difference as well, is we're very quick each week. Once one result, everyone's quick to just shift and jump on something. Is that what, like, if you're listening to these podcasts as well, we're kind of preaching to the converted, but if you're taking the time to tweet out in your personal time on Twitter about the Steelers, or on Facebook or whatever other channel, or even to go to your local bar and, you know, and wear your jersey and talk about it, right? Surely you've got enough respect and love for the team to just back them even when the times are down. And people always, when you challenge it too, people sit there and go, oh, I don't know, like I love my Steelers, I just want to see them do well. Well, let's put some positive energy out there, right? Now, I don't know, most people probably don't believe in, you know, you putting energy out, and what you put out in the universe, you get back. But God, well, at least we could put some, you know, positive, you know, juju out there. Like,
I think so. Like,
it's like a positive outlook on, like, is the glass empty all the time, or is it full? Or you can look at it and go, oh, what's left in the glass of this season that we might be able to make something positive from it. There's a great quote I saw this week was, it's not about whether the glass is, full, empty, or can be refilled, or either one of them. It's that it can be refilled.
That's good.
They've got a chance to refill the glass this week.
Or you're even holding the glass to begin with.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and I know we have talked about a lot of fans, but I think we had to get off our chest and to address it. It needed to be addressed because it seems like we are, oh my, what happened to, oh wow, let's go. But at the end of the day, we are supporters. And what do supporters do? You support your team. And for us bashing them and saying Big Ben stinks after the 17, 18 years he's given us, I don't agree with that at all. And this is really bar talk. This is you and I going over to America, having a few beverages and talking to, guys in Pittsburgh and having bar talk and saying who is better. And we love that. We love that conversation. We really do. So maybe it needs to be more addressed in person than it does need to be on the social media aspect of sides. But, it's not over. And it's not over with Big Ben. And he's done tremendous things. And or they haven't won in this many days. But it's still less than the Bengals. The Bengals haven't won in, let me check, 11,291 days. We're okay. We're okay.
But with that, we're going to take a break on Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matt Peverill with Marky D as always. Join us for part 2. If you're on the live YouTube side and Facebook side, just stay with us for a sec. If you're on the audio side, flick over to part 2. We're going to talk more about the Ravens, do a bit of audience Q&A, slinging the slang as usual. And yeah, really looking forward to a great part 2. And we're back on Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matt Peverill, joined by always as my co-host, Marky D, Marky Davison. Mate, guess what time it is?
It's time for Slinging the Slang with your host, Matty Peverill, and his sidekick, Mark Davison.
Should be like a ding-ding fight, right?
I was running out of breath. I was like, hang on a minute. You want to pass back to you than to me? I need breath again. So,
but turn. Mark, if the news, the breaking news as we go live right now, so from the audio side, you're probably sick to death of hearing about it because everything's going to run right over the next 48 hours if it's true, is that Ben Roethlisberger has told the teammates that privately this is his final season. If that's the case, I always like to say, we like to say this segment, just as Big Ben likes to sling the rock, we like to sling the slang. It doesn't have the same juice to it with another player, so we might have to change the name of this segment next year.
As Najee Harris likes to bargy, I got nothing. Argy bargy, but that's
argy bargy, yeah.
Yeah, just Big Ben, you got to stay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to come up. We will, trust us. We will come up with something. But we're gonna need to maybe change the segment. Just doesn't have the same ring to it, right? Like
bad just might cancel our show. So I'm sorry.
Maybe.
There's no more uniqueness. You guys are gone. You're done. See you, mate. Get rid of you.
We'll come up with it. That's right. It's like that. For those that have been listening to us since we only did the audio side, the full almost 18 months. It's like when we had the the Jordan Berry stat of the week. And that lasted, 2 weeks?
I have to put it out there. That was kind of my idea. And I think both of us didn't really like it because we knew it was going to end. So we're just like, we're so glad he got cut because we didn't really – how do you stretch that? You did another punt for 45-yard average. Like, he's going okay.
The funniest was, I remember this second week that we went to do that and I remember looking at his stats. I'm like, oh, they weren't that bad the previous season. Like, it actually had a good season. So we were going in there wanting to hate on him, and it didn't really work. But anyway, it's time for Slinging the Slang. Big Ben hasn't retired yet. So as we always like to say, just as Big Ben likes to sling the rock, we do like to sling the slang. It's where we give you a taste of all things Aussie. Marky D, what have you got for the listeners this week?
So this week I've got a bit of a history lesson, and it's quite boring, but kind of cool at the same time, and a bit gross too. So, did you know that the original term "selfie" comes from Australia, Maddie? Did you know that?
I did. Funnily
you didn't know
enough,
that. All right, move on.
so Mark, we talk about this is great. It was what better timing, right? So we're talking about all things Aussie, and I look over to the corner about a couple of meters away. I don't know, whatever, how many inches or yards that is, and there's a big spider.
Mate, you need to get that right now. You need to turn your camera off. You need to go
turn my camera off.
You need to go
tell all the listeners about selfies.
You need to go get a thong and hit that right now. Are you leaving? Because I do have a story about selfies. If you need to get it, I've got it covered.
Keep going about selfies. I'm going to sort this spider out.
I've got it covered for about a minute. All right, so we have a live spider update in Australia, and this happens. So when we do see spiders, and I'm like petrified of spiders too. So when I see a spider in my room, I got to make sure I get that before I do anything else. As I see Maddie in the corner of my eye chasing a spider. Oh my! I can't wait till he comes back. But yeah, when we see a spider, and I've had many times in Australia too. When I've been driving in my car, I've been going like 60 kilometers and I had to use a Macca's bag to kill this spider. And yes, some people say, oh, you're not meant to kill the spider, but it's either the spider, or it's me at the time, right? So right now, Maddie has found one. We don't know what kind of spider it is. It could be a huntsman. It could be a redback. It could be something like that. It's quite warm in Australia, so they come into their houses. They put their webs and they get their food. But if we see it, some people deal with it. But maybe like me and Maddie, if we see it and it's we cannot get it out of our minds until it is gone and deleted, and then we can move on, because there's been nothing worse than doing a podcast and a spider crawls up your neck, up into your face, and then it'd be terrible. It wouldn't be a good thing. So I might even wait till Maddie gets back. I think he might have deleted the spider. But getting back to what I was talking about with the selfies that I'm doing right now, which is kind of the selfie. That started in Australia. So the selfie was termed in Australia because we tend to add like E onto things, or Arvo, or things like that. We tend to abbreviate things like that. So the selfie started with a drunken guy in Australia at a mate's 21st. He tripped over and landed on his lip first, cut his lip this is pretty gruesome. So close your ears, everyone's. But his teeth came through his lip, and his first thought was to take a photo, and he said to everyone as he posted the photo online or with his friends, sorry, everyone, sorry about the focus. I had to, turn it around for a selfie. And I didn't know that was actually an Australian slang or I didn't know selfie was part of it, but we do a lot of things like that in Australia, like bevies and things of that nature. We'll get back onto some Steelers talk. I think Maddie's going to come back in here. I think he's got the update. I think he has the update with the spider.
Okay, I'm back. All right. Well, I don't know where it is, so that's really good. There's only one thing I hate in life. Like I can deal with snakes and deal with anything. Is I hate spiders. So it is what it is. But Mark probably could see it while he was telling selfies. It was I went to whack it and ended up flying through the air. So anyway, we're back from that. But how did the selfie story go, Mark?
We're fine. We've done and we've moved on. With this spider, what kind of spider is it? Before we were talking Steelers,
I think it was a huntsman.
Jeez Louises! All right, and you don't know where it is at the moment.
I don't know where it is.
Okay, all right. Bear with us, everyone.
I hit it. I hit it, just for everyone out there. So I hit it with my Vans that were close by, and I went to hit it against the windowsill, and then the web got stuck to the window, and it comes like hurling toward me, which I think Mark saw. So then I'd like jump backward. The Vans that my Vans that I whacked it with, like the shoe, it's gone flying up in the air, and then we don't. Well,
luckily you are on the video side. You are standing up, Maddie. So if anything does happen, I assume you have a plan in place to, disconnect from this chat, and I'll go back into another monologue. We'll just do it. It'll be fine. But we've got to take care of ourselves first in this atmosphere of Australia, because we do have. I was telling them how I had a spider once in my car going 70 kilometers an hour, and the only thing I had to kill it was with a Macca's bag. I had to squish against the window. And that was move on time. I've had one where I put a T-shirt on and it's been inside my T-shirt. There's been quite a few times where this has happened. Do you want me to ask you the questions? You seem a bit rattled today.
I don't know. I just don't like them. But no, my slang this week was the title of the show today, it says, "Can the Steelers get up for AFC North football?" I think most people understand what that means. Obviously getting up, turning up to play. Can they win the game? But sometimes we'll say it really slang in terms of, will the Steelers get up? And it's more about getting the win. So in Australia, we often say that, and I don't know, might be the case in the US as well, or whatever country, the listeners are listening from. But it's just something you would, like, even I said to Mark before we started the show, will the Steelers get up today? Get up against the Ravens? And he said, yeah, I think so. So that's sort of where it's sitting there. But I did not plan to release a spider. I can rest everyone assured I did not plan to release a spider during the Slinging the Slang part of this podcast and live YouTube show. It's
some of the best content we've ever had. All right.
It would have been fun if it was on camera. If everyone could have seen that.
Oh, I saw plenty of it, and it was quite hilarious. I hope it's hiding away. You can get it in the next half an hour, or next hour or so. But
anyway, let's move on to the Ravens.
Exactly. Let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson. He's a bit like an 8-legged freak in a way, the way he runs through people.
Look, he's an amazing superstar. Lamar Jackson is and I say superstar, I don't think he's really a quarterback. And I think he's super fast. He's elusive. The biggest thing is, though, I find he's winning these games, and his win record is so good. But he's with a good Ravens team. So some of those wins I don't find, and Justin Tucker's winning games for him. I think Tucker should have the more win-loss as starters than when the graphic comes up for Lamar Jackson being like 40-10 or something, because Tucker's just winning as many games as Lamar Jackson is starting. Last week he threw 4 interceptions. He's so close to fumbling the football every time he runs the ball. And against the Steelers too in the red zone, I think when we had Bud Dupree, he was Fumbletron. That's all he did. I can see it happening again because he's so loose with the football and so laissez and thinks, I can just run around everybody. But hopefully TJ Watt and Highsmith and those fellas, and someone needs to step up to really rattle him. I'll be very angry if they let him in this game and control this game. He's not a Joe Burrow. He's not even a Baker Mayfield.
Well, that's it. And it's pretty interesting, right? Because Ben has 14 TDs, 6 interceptions, interception percentage of 1.6% on all his passes, quarterback rating of 88.9. Lamar Jackson has 15 TDs, 12 interceptions, interception rate of 3.5% across all his passes, and a quarterback rating of 87.5. Lamar Jackson's thrown for more yardage, almost about 100 yards more than Ben Roethlisberger. But who would you rather as your quarterback, right? And particularly in a game that's more likely to be decided by turnovers. The thing for me that's interesting about this game is we know how well the Steelers have done in figuring out Lamar Jackson and being able to potentially stop him as well, and where Devin Bush has come into play over the last few years as well. You saw what Alex Highsmith was able to do last year. And, the Cuda 70 just put it into the live chat. I'm so glad to see TJ playing tomorrow. Me too, because I think you could see them shift TJ, into the middle a little bit more as well. Do we have what it takes to stop Lamar in the run game? Leave the passing game to one side, and they do have a deep passing game. But do we have what it takes? Because that you've seen him put the team on his back in so many close wins, fourth quarter comebacks, overtime comebacks this year. Do we have what it takes to stop Lamar in the run game?
Well, it's all going to be about schematics, really, isn't it? We're going to play a similar game plan to what the Dolphins did with sending 7, or imagining or pretending to send 8 and then dropping back 2. You need to get in Lamar's head and get him, because he's going to run regardless. You've got to have QB contain on the outside. Highsmith and those guys can't, barrel into the middle and there's no one on the outside. You saw what, was it Joe Burrow last week or Herbert? One of those runs might have been Burrow. No, I think it was Herbert the other week when they all crashed into the line and then he went into the outside and got a million yards and Cameron Heyward tackled him. It's going to be very schematic. I do see how skill comes into it as well. But with Lamar being so young and he's not a very pocket passer, doesn't really do too much. He fumbles the ball a lot. He's already fumbled the football, I think, rushing, 5 times. That's quite a lot in 12 games, and he just gives the ball away. And if you can schematically slow him down and push him to certain places where you need him to be, you know, and make Lamar think that he was meant to go to the right-hand side, but maybe he wasn't. And then he throws a duck egg over the middle and you get a pick by Bush or Minka, you know, spying. It's going to be very smart strategic football, I think, in this game. And if we don't do the X's and O's and really get around the fundamentals of keeping Lamar at bay, then they're going to be slinging the football to Hollywood Brown and those kind of guys. And then Mark Andrews and those guys are just going to, you know, roll over us. What do you think? Like, can we contain Lamar, or is he going to go out there and do 400 yards and 3 TDs? And
well, I mean, this is the really different thing about like Lamar, like, and Clarence brought it up, and it's 100% right. Like, it's going to be about tackling. Like, are they going to make tackles? Are they going to try and hit him up top, or are they going to hit him at the hips and below? And that's going to make the big difference, right? You know, Todd brings up in the live chat about Tuitt being out, how that defensive line is affecting, you know, those inside linebackers as well. These are the things. Like, it's almost like they're going to have to stick someone on him in man and, you know, do their best there. I wonder, like, I said it the last couple of weeks as well, Highsmith. I think Highsmith just needs to put a homing missile in there on Lamar Jackson. He just needs to be, and what is going to have to absolutely, you know, and I think it's going to be very helpful for us, you know, that we've now obviously got TJ back, not just what he can do, but a lot of the distraction that he's going to be providing. But Cam is going to have to have another massive game this week. I mean, he's going to have to be putting enough interior pressure in there. And the other player that I think the Steelers miss in a game like this is Mike Hilton, because Mike Hilton could come down and stop a lot of that and help, you know, with the you know, the edge on, and, you know, the side to side sort of play. When you don't have Hayden too, this is, you know, who it's lining up for this week, Marky D. Terrell Edmonds. Terrell Edmonds needs to
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
And especially with Mark Andrews. If the Steelers are going to win this game, Terrell Edmonds needs to almost have a career day.
Yeah, Terrell Edmonds can come down in the box. He can kind of spy or figure things out with Lamar, because I'm telling you right now, Lamar Jackson's deep ball is not the prettiest. He overthrew Mark Andrews the other day by at least 5 yards. He did another throw to, I think, the sideline of Hollywood Brown, and the ball was going out of bounds before it even had a chance. It's going to be a very interesting game. I know a lot of people say the Ravens are going to run over us, and we are one of the worst teams defending the run. But at the same time, I just don't see that the Ravens team is very special. I think we've figured them out, and what will be very helpful in that defense to help us figure it out. And the two key components, I think, are Devin Bush and Schobert really got to show up. I just want them to send a message, like, be physical in the first quarter and send a darn message and say, hey, we're ready to play. And if you run Lamar out, or was it 2 years ago that Minka hit Lamar and we lost the game on that penalty? I think it was a penalty, something similar, right? Trying to send a message we get flagged for it doesn't really help. But they need to send a message when Lamar runs. If you want to run all day, you're also going to get hurt all day. And I'll keep bringing this analogy up because I think it's so true. The running quarterbacks who are 90% or 80% run or 70% more run than pass, once you get hit after a big run, you're tired, you're sore, you've got to go back to that offense, and you've got to control the offense, and you need a big play. So I'm just saying that the wear and tear effects on Lamar can be out through the whole game. On the flip side, he could go out and tear us a new one and run 150 yards, and we've got no answer for it. So we need an answer. I think Coach Tolman talked about it too. In certain situations, we need an answer. I think you need to answer every single play. You can't let him up. You can't let him beat us.
Well, and the thing is that, like, when you think about this game, the Steelers, this is going to go back to, if we're worried about the defense and you're worried about them running the ball, then the Steelers have to score some points and the offense needs to make the Ravens chase us. But just hold on to the ball. Like, they can't run the ball and Lamar can't do his thing if you don't allow him to have the ball. And the Steelers, in terms of time of possession, are in the bottom half of the league this year. You know, and so I think, and I know it's been a lot more prevalent in their losses as well. The Steelers, like Big Ben and Najee, just have to find a way to hold the ball. You know, they can't afford 3 and outs off the, you know, without getting a couple of first downs. Like, they just have to absolutely hold the ball in this game. And they're going to have to kick field goals when they can. Like, just get some points. Just constantly keep that scoreboard ticking over, dial up the pressure on the other team. That's what the Ravens do in a lot of respects as well. You look at what the Bengals did last week. It was funny when I went back and looked at that game, I didn't realize how many, field goals they kicked. So, I know the O-line isn't great and what have you, but they have to find a way to hold on to this football and soak some time on the clock.
I like what Michael O'Malley says, our mate from YouTube land. You have to hit him in the legs every play, hit him every time, whether he runs or hands it off, hit him every play. I think Mike was ready to suit up. I think Mike was ready to go in there and become an inside linebacker and starts, smashing some people.
But he's 100% right. We were talking about this in the Slack channel. I was talking about this with, Shannon and KT Smith, and Jeffrey Bendick, I think, was in there too. Like, this tackling up top that you see in the NFL and rugby league, it doesn't bring anyone down. The momentum is in the legs. You hit people at the hip or below. If you're aiming anywhere above the hip, they ain't going to be stopped. And, I was always taught that, if you're tackling a bigger bloke or someone that, is very powerful, grab them around the knees, hold on for dear life. They're not going to be able to run down the field with you hanging off there. It's just not possible. Lock into the knees, squeeze them tight, even better if you can get them on the ankles, right? Now, in a rugby sport, they can throw a pass back. How many times do you see a lateral pass mid-play in the NFL? Very rarely, because it's too much risk of it going wrong. So rather than just try and hit someone up top, why don't you just shut them down?
That's a very good.
It's too complex. They're overcomplicating it.
Yeah, that's a very good point you raised in our Slack channel, because coming from the NRL rugby league side in Australia that we watch, you got to wrap the ball up so they don't pass it as well. But actually, in a funny way, an amazing leg tackle in the NRL now it's so good to see, but it doesn't give you the advantage because they can play the ball super fast. I would like to say, and you brought it before, we do miss a guy like Mike Hilton. Some of his tackles off the edge was so enjoyable. He went for the legs. He wasn't the biggest guy, Mighty Mouse. They need that mentality of, going for the legs and stuffing the run, no matter who it is, and wrapping up and getting 2nd and 12 and moving on. A big guy like Cam Heyward or some of the D-line guys, yes, they can use their pure strength and be a bear hug kind of guy. But Cameron Sutton, James Pierre, Minka, I've been talking about Minka a fair bit, and he's done a lot of tackles, but he's missing a lot of tackles too,
Yes, big time.
So it just depends on the fundamentals of football, and hopefully they are listening to two Australian blokes from Australia. But you've got the background too, Manny, of playing rugby, right? So I appreciate that.
It's just tackling is something that tackling is a mindset. There is technique. Do not get me wrong. And technique is a bit more important than how much you weigh and how much muscle you're carrying, right? Technique is everything, right? You hit them in the hips, eyes up. So, and that helps you not have an unfortunate situation like a Shazier situation. Eyes up, follow through. But it's a mentality. Right now, like obviously, I didn't play professional rugby. I played pretty high standard at a high school team level. If you compare it to the American sort of system, and played a bit once I got a bit older in some suburban leagues, which against some really quality opponents like a college D2 or sort of level. But it's a mindset, and it took me a long time. I remember this. It took me a long time to understand that it was a mindset. And I used to sit there and like anyone else and go, that guy's a lot bigger than me, what have you. Now, I know they're NFL pros. They're not afraid of making a tackle. But sometimes it looks like it. And it's not about the fear mentality when you're a professional. It's about the mentality of, this player's in front of me. He's got the ball. I'm going to stop him. He's not getting past me. And this goes back to when we were talking earlier about for me, when I think about Steelers football and pride in the jersey and the standard, it's like my responsibility is to make sure that man does not get that ball through any more inches down the field than I can possibly allow him to do. Like, I'm going to stop him from making a play and getting further down that field. It's any given Sunday, game of inches style stuff. And you have to go in with that mindset. And the problem is that it's very rarely, you can get away with it sometimes on a very, very good team where one person doesn't have that mindset. But when there's a few people and you're playing without a lot of great players and you've got a talent difference, it becomes obvious very quickly. And missed tackles, and it's why I always harp on about missed tackles. And, the difference is we don't know always where a player's been schemed. But once you start seeing a certain number of missed tackles in a game and you see the other team make plays, and it leads to a momentum shift. And I don't think the idea of missed tackles and making tackles and the tackling mindset is often as prevalent as it should be. And I've heard it a lot, actually, in the last draft season about cornerbacks. And you're starting to see this distinct line of quarterbacks coming through the college level, ones that want to make a tackle and other ones that want to play the ball and not make a tackle. But the problem is we've got guys, not just at the cornerback level, but at the linebacker position that don't want to make a tackle. We've got defensive guys that can't get past their blocks, and this is and someone said the Steelers been bad at tackling, since 2018. I have to admit, going back to that Jaguars game in the playoffs and that season before, I've seen some suspect tackling for a while. This is not new. And in the Slack channel, and I get it's not his core responsibility, but when I think about Keith Butler, tackling is a mindset, and tackling to me is the responsibility at the end of the day of the defensive coordinator. And the other thing that I find really frustrating, and I get that tackling, can put your body and you need to be preserved for the games and sports science and all the rest of it. Tackling doesn't require pads. You don't need pads to do tackling practice. You can tackle without a pad. I would argue that 80% of Australian boys and probably 30-40% of Australian girls, have tackled someone, and we don't wear pads. So I think that it is a mindset. You can do it. You can do it on a tackling bag. You can do it for an hour, and you can get good at it, and you don't need pads to do it. And I don't know why it's not focused on.
If you have a brother or a sister, you've definitely done some tackling, no matter what, in your day.
Exactly.
I've got two brothers, and all we did, they picked on me because I was the youngest one. All they did was randomly I'd be making my breakfast and I get tackled. It's in our, I don't know if it's in our nature, but it's just something, we kind of do. One thing I want to bring up too, do you remember the time when Troy Polamalu tackled with his back?
Yes.
He was in a tackle, he got pushed out of the way, and he trod on his feet, stepped back, and he put his two arms out, and he made a tackle.
Basketball tackle.
With his back, with his arms out with his back. That's a really good point, and that would be the number one in fundamentals over the scheme, is really wrap up the ball carrier, because they're getting yards on us. And yes, people, the defense with Bush and Schobert, they're looking at each other and going, "Oh, are you getting him or am I getting him?" No. Someone needs to get in there first. And Mike Hilton had that mentality as well from the edge, and he set the standard, saying, "I'm going to get your running back." And he showed it in that Houston game where he got 3 sacks. Yeah, tackling is probably, now that you raise it, it's probably a pretty big issue that we haven't been doing. And it's very strange how we don't, in training, that you're only allowed 1 week when you play football to not hurt yourself in the biggest game, the biggest stage, and you can't practice that. That's pretty strange, right? If I was a violinist, how do I get better? Oh, I can only do it once a week. When I get on the big stage at the Opera House, I sink it. I go terrible. What a bad analogy.
And G's puts it up in the live chat, it's a mental thing because you learn how to tackle as you do. And I've seen tackling, on the wayside a bit. And even the way, I remember when I learned, right? And my grandfather, was, at the time, professional rugby didn't start until the 1990s, believe it or not, in Australia. But he was at that level, what have you. But he used to say that we didn't teach, how I was taught tackling was very different from how he was taught tackling. It's a thing that, it's continued. But as much as it is a mental thing, if you don't do it regularly, you don't get better at it. And I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to be one of those haters that we've talked about throughout this show. But if you're not going to get them in the game, then the next week of practice, you got to get it right, because they're not making them at the moment. They're not making enough of the big tackles. And this is why they need to hang on to Lamar's legs, even if it takes 2 players, and stop him. Trying to tackle him up top of the jersey, above the waistline, just isn't going to work.
It's even putting yourself in that position, the right angle, the right pursuit. A lot of times I think we've been over pursuing plays or not breaking the blocks with Devin Bush and those kind of guys.
Yep.
I like TJ Watt is a form tackler. I love how he plays and gets after it. Even Highsmith to a certain degree, I think he does some really good tackles too. It's just, some of our cornerbacks aren't getting in the mix and really getting rough and tumble and like you said, the fundamentals of it. And it does come down to coaching. It really does. The one thing I find funny about this Steelers team and all the NFL, you train all week and then you come out and lay a duck egg. So, I am hopeful, but you train all week for these things and then you're not prepared to do something. And I don't know if the money gets involved or they don't really care like the old days where players would have 2 jobs and still go to football, or they would get people from out of nowhere to play football. We're in a different mentality. But if I was a player, Matty, and I don't know about you, if I was a player right now, I couldn't stand the dislike and the hate from everyone. It would fire me up to do better.
I'd be pumped. Man.
Yeah.
I remember what it was like to play in front of a couple of thousand people, like maybe just 1,000. I remember what it was like to play in front of 50 people, right? And the pride of that and wearing a jersey, right? And a legacy. I don't understand. But I wanted to go back. We've actually got a Cincinnati Bengals fan in the house, K. James B, who says, I've enjoyed the week of Steeler pain, but as a Cincinnati fan, painfully long-suffering, I expect the Steelers to win against a mediocre Ravens squad. Running quarterbacks don't last long in the NFL. So, welcome. We like fans of all teams in here, and, we always say as long as it keeps positive and respectful. But, Bengals have been long-suffering, and, they're on the up. But he needs us as well. That's a little bit cheeky because he needs us to beat the Ravens to help the Bengals out. So.
Exactly, yeah. But that's funny, right? Like they've had a really bad, few seasons and haven't made the playoffs in 31 years, and we're worried about one game. That's why I think overall scheme of things, we're worried about the one game that we got punished, and we did. We deserved that loss to 41-10. It was a terrible play. But the Bengals fans, I haven't been to the playoffs in 31 years. So, look, respect to that guy. Thanks for coming in the live chat, and I wish you well. But I think this Bengals team is a really good side this year, and boy, they are playing some good football. And I agree with him. I don't think the Ravens are playing good football.
Yeah, well, 100%. You look at how close the wins are. But Mark, before we get, an audience, go free, ask us whatever question you like. But while the audience come up with a couple of questions there, Mark, throw it over to you. Mark, what's your punch of the week? What's your bold prediction?
DJ 150.
Any TDs?
No, not touchdowns. 150 yards.
Yeah,
DJ. Oh, I guess 2. I don't know. No,
I say Pat Freiermuth continues it. Pat Freiermuth TD.
Really? No, I like DJ in this game, mate. I really do. I think he's gonna. I think this is they've hurt the Steelers' feelings, and they're saying they're no good. They're terrible. What better way to come out and for DJ to have his career game ever? This is the game.
Yeah, right.
And you reckon Muth is going to get another TD?
And I think Terrell Edmonds potentially game-winning splash play, but definitely big splash play from Terrell Edmonds.
Well, he got the last year. He got the sack against, was it the Ravens quarterback?
No, that was the Broncos at the end there.
Okay.
I still don't give him full credit. Like, yeah, he was in the right position. He got there really quickly, but like, there's no one on him.
It was like he had to make that tackle, right? Otherwise, if he didn't,
it's like, yeah, that would have been a bit suspect. A bit suspect.
No, I can see Muth having a good game. I think the offense needs to bounce back, and they need to put the defense on the back foot. You can't go 3 and out. We talk it all the time. There's no way you can go 3 and out all the time. Run Najee, get set, play action, use Muth. DJ, get open that zone coverage. The 32nd best. I found that out through Dave's stats this week. The 32nd best in the pass. You got to capitalize on that, and I think DJ has a chance to really say, "This is my team. I'm number one. I am the best Steeler receiver at the moment." He
is, and I think he's really getting up there in the NFL as one of the best receivers. He's having a terrific year. It's a shame that it's not translating to as well as it could to Steelers wins. But I think with that, we're going to wrap up a very different, a very strange, in some ways unhinged Steelers touch down under. It's always a pleasure. Mark's doing the spider signs over the webcam. But no, thank you very much for listening, listeners, this week. And look, at the end of the day, we've got to back this team. You're listening to this podcast because you love the black and the gold. That's not going to change, or definitely shouldn't. Really sad if this is Ben's last season, but at the same time, be hopeful. There's a lot to be positive about with this team. And there are a lot of worse teams out there in the NFL, and you could be a fan of with not such a good family and fan base as the BTSC community. But with that, have a good week. And as always, Mark,
go Steelers.